Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Business from the Bass Boat Podcast on the Serious Angler Network. And today, folks, we've got an awesome show lined up. It's about to be ridiculously busy for me. We have got a string of tournaments that is just crazy coming up here. We've got going straight from, let's see, a local tournament on Pueblo Reservoir, then straight to Nebraska. After Nebraska, I come back and head to the Delta in California as a co-angler, and then head to South Dakota for a Bass Nation tournament. So about to get really, really hectic in my life. So I am just getting some podcasts cranked out and excited to get ready to get on the road here. But today's show, I'm excited for. This is one that we thought through just from the standpoint of what's cool about the Serious Angler Network and doing this as a group with Serious Angler Podcast is we have all three kind of different backgrounds. We got Bailey working in the fishing industry, Andrew guiding, and then myself working in the fishing industry with the podcast, but then also outside of the fishing industry. So, and tournament fishing, of course. And so, a lot of different perspectives there. And this one in particular, it's been cool because we've seen the growth, and we had him on in the beginning with the Business from the Bass Boat Show of starting this guide service, but we've got the one and only, already the captain with Serious Angler Podcast, but Andrew Full. How are you, dude?
Hey, living the dream in Western New York. It was raining all day today. Had to cancel my guide trip because we had like 35-mile-an-hour winds, but it works out because I had to fix some things on my boat. So I had to wait for the wind and rain to stop to do that. But things are good.
Things are good.
Living on the water.
No doubt. Man, I'm excited to get into all of this. And because you've been on the show before, we won't go really into all that much necessarily of your background and everything getting into this. But I will say, going from working at the bank to now doing this full time, your income is reliant on this. I mean, how scary now that we're looked back and we're a year later. That's what's cool about this. We're about a year out from when you started this whole thing. How scary was it for you to make that jump from a steady income into like, hey, I'm going to need to make sure I have clients coming in the door consistently?
Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, because you're going from a steady paycheck every week to, if I don't get clients, I can't eat type deal. Thankfully, I have an amazing support system in my wife who has a really good job. So it was pretty much
Both
her
business
who,
owners.
yeah, both business owners. So
Yeah.
pretty much it was her pushing me to do it with the support. I didn't think it would take off as quick as it did last year. And ultimately, like one August day, I came home. Well, I think it was actually like in July when I put my 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
But I came home just irritated. She's like, quit. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. And fall was really well. And we started steelhead guiding to like final out to kind of carry some money in, doing some odd jobs here and there.
Sure.
And yeah, things have been great, like almost stress free in a different sense of being stress free because I'm stressing about getting trips, but I don't have to worry about somebody breathing down my neck anymore, telling me to do irrelevant things that have no meaning to my job. So,
Dude, yeah, I think that is a huge point there. It's like, okay, there is like this this stress for working for yourself, and that's what I do now, even with my real estate stuff on the finance side outside of work. But that I agree. There's like a freedom in the sense that it's all on me, whether we perform or not, whether we do well. But there's not like a some dumb task that you're getting asked to do that you don't see a benefit in or benefiting the company or anything.
yeah.
So I agree, man. There's something there.
Yeah, there's definitely one of the hardest things to do for me is to sell something I don't believe in, right? Like, so like even when it comes to working with our partners,
Yeah.
I have to believe in our partners on the serious angler side in order to promote their product. If I don't believe in it, even if like I was 18 or 19 years old and accepted a deal, I don't believe in it. I don't use it. I won't talk about it. And it's probably mutually best to separate yourself from a company like that at that point. But yeah, it's like gadgets with corporate work world were just insane, and that's what they always wanted. Like, I was in a sales position at the bank, and
Okay.
they're like, gadgets, 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 you got to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, if I do that, I'm not going to make any money. Like,
Yeah.
and then you get yelled at for exceeding your sales goals but not having enough gadgets. So it's just,
What are gadgets? I'm confused here.
so like gadgets would be like online banking enrollments and like clicking
Oh,
on tabs inside the app that lead you into a third party program that the bank has paid for and stuff
okay.
like that. And you had to have like a 30% click rate on a monthly basis to do this. But it's like
Hmm.
95% of our clients didn't have online banking because they were 80 to 95 years old, and they were just worried about the interest rate on their $500,000 of CDs that they have that matured every 2 months because they were laddered.
Sure.
So, like, it's like that person doesn't care about online banking. They're in here every 2 days asking what the interest rate is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
You got to know your customer. And
yeah,
dude, like selling something that you do not believe in, people are smart, man. People have instincts. They can
yeah.
tell right away if you don't. And like you said, we've had many conversations, you know, with what are we going to bring on for partners and whatnot for this year of the Serious Angler podcast. And it's always comes back to, okay, do we actually like this company? Do we actually like this product? Do we use this product already?
Don't mind my wife crawling. I told her she could walk.
I think the crawl was better. That brought way more entertainment.
It was so funny.
Oh my
You can
god.
crawl back now.
Yeah. Don't even stand up. Just stay crawling. There you go. Yeah. Oh, that was so good. Oh, God. Yeah, I think that's a first. I haven't seen
Yeah.
someone crawl behind. I've seen like dogs.
Yeah.
I've seen people walking around, but a crawl. Nice. A slow, sneaky army crawl. That was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Like, I heard her coming because I'm upstairs, and I looked to my right, and she's like, "Can I come up?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, I wasn't expecting her to crawl. Like,
Just,
normal life of the full household on a daily basis. That's all you need to know. It's the way things go
no
around here.
doubt. No doubt. But anyways, you got to believe in the product to sell it. And that's part of what we do with our partners. And it's always something that is something that we truly believe in, because otherwise it doesn't make
It's
sense to represent them.
it's super important to sell something that you believe in. And if you don't have a reason to sell it, still talk about it, because if you truly believe it, people can tell just by the way the bait looks after you catch some fish on it. So
Is that a tackle
it
neck
is.
knocker?
It
Yeah,
is.
I like this.
I mean, I hear they leak. This one hasn't leaked yet.
I
Oh,
have one that is leaking.
yeah, I've heard that they leak. This one hasn't been too bad, but I do see a worrisome spot on it. So I'm going to be interested to see. I think every big fish that I caught last year on topwater came on this chartreuse shad
I've got
kick
that color.
knocker. It's a good
Yeah.
one.
Well, what's interesting about that bait, too, is it's the original mold from the Repo Man.
Which
The
was the original mold of the Reaction Innovation Vixen.
I'm sorry, not the Repo Man. I'm thinking of it. No, yeah, you're
They're
right.
they're all the same.
Yeah, there's like it's all the same mold and it's just different plastics, right, or whatever. And then like you have people who spend hundreds of dollars on the original Vixens. And
So
anyway,
here's a quick question before on rabbit holes.
yeah,
Whatever happened to Bub Tosh and Paycheck Baits?
I have no idea, but I know exactly what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and I don't know. There's so many little bait makers out west specifically that like just dissipate, and I don't
Yeah.
know what happened to them.
But just Bub Tosh in general, he was like a Delta legend and like just
Mhm.
disappeared from the face of the earth.
And I don't know. I don't and this will be my first time ever going to the Delta here in a couple weeks, but like that is I've heard that name a ton. And
Yeah.
then you're right, like you kind of just like I haven't heard that name in a really long time.
Just gone. Just what it is what it is.
Yeah.
So back on track. I apologize.
All right,
I
no,
digress.
you're good. You're good, man. No, I just really wanted to get into a check-in with you after a year of doing this. I'd love to get your thoughts in a lot of different aspects of your business now and where you're at, you've done so much on the outside, off the water, on the water. I like how you diversify in both, river trips, especially kind of in that winter time frame, fall time frame, and then also all your lake stuff. What's been your biggest, I guess, to start, your biggest learning curve? What was like the hardest thing over this last year for you to, like, I don't know, was it talking to clients? Was it building a website? I mean, where was the hardest thing for you?
The hardest thing for me, and this is going to sound completely funny,
Uh-huh.
going from a tournament angler to a professional guide captain,
Yeah.
the hardest thing for me to learn was boat positioning.
Interesting, because it's not
Because
you're setting up for
correct.
the clients.
Yep. So like when you're in Lake Erie in 3 foot waves, you have to position the boat correctly in a 2 to 3 foot wave to where you're not taking water over the side, that it's comfortable. It's a dry ride. When you're
Mm,
driving, it's not a big deal, but when you're covering a giant area and drift fishing in that, you have to position the boat to a way where your client isn't getting beat up, but
mm,
also they can have contact with the bait all the time, because not every client that you get in the boat is a really good angler. A lot of
sure.
times they're like, I can't feel anything or I'm snagged. So it's finding that fine line between I can't feel anything to I'm snagged with the boat positioning and speed and speeding up, changing sizes. So like you and I, Adam, we could probably get away with fishing a quarter ounce weight in like a drift that's 0.5 miles an hour, right?
Mhm.
To an average client, they might have to run 3/8 or a half ounce
Mm.
because they're just not used to that feel. And
Yeah, they wanna
it's
feel the bottom and they wanna feel everything.
correct.
Yeah.
So it's between that and like actually like sitting there and showing them how to present a bait properly when the lake
You
goes
gotta teach them.
flat calm is like the two hardest things.
Okay. So it's either when it's windy and tough a little bit, and having to have them understand and feel what's going on, and then same with when it's absolutely slick calm.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there's never anything in between on Lake Erie. So it's kind of it's interesting. Slick calm, I think, is honestly more tough for me now
Really?
than when we have two footers.
Okay. And what's the issue with the slick calm is you're having to have them work the bait?
Yes, so the biggest thing is like a lot of times it's slack line bites
Mm,
and you're casting 200 to 250 feet from the boat, which sounds like a crazy far distance, but
yeah.
as soon as you have live scope, you understand 250 feet isn't far at all.
No.
Um, and then like you're teaching them how to slack line a Ned rig in 42 foot of water with a 3/8 or a quarter ounce head, counting to 30 for it to fall, and
Sure.
sitting there shaking and crawling it back for 6 minutes back to the boat 250
Mm,
feet away. And then they're like, oh, I think it's a rock. And you'd be like, nah, man, that's a fish. Hit him.
yeah.
Like, and it's just stuff like that. I've learned how to read people's rods in line.
I bet. You're just sitting there
Like,
watching.
yeah, like there's two clients of mine that are like, "How did you know that was a bite?" And I'm like, as I've seen like 3,000 fish be caught on a rod, I can just tell at this point. I'm like,
Oh,
hit them.
yeah.
So like the big thing is I tell clients is like, if I say hit them, reel as fast as you can and hit them.
Yeah.
Set the hook as hard as you can
Yeah.
because they're 200 feet away, 42 foot down. There's a lot of slack.
Yeah, you better track them.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's yeah, there's been a lot of cool things, trials and tribulations, but we're
Sure.
getting there, I think. We're getting
Now
there.
now, as far as in the rough water goes, like you said, keeping someone dry. I mean, I think about that too, like, I don't know, taking my girlfriend out versus my tournament partner, right? Like, if it's
Yeah.
blowing, we have no problem just going, right? And
Yep.
it's like, all right, put the rain gear on because we're gonna get a little wet here. But now it's like, okay, I gotta drive differently. Have you ever considered like a walleye boat, or a big Lund or a deep Ranger or something that would be a little bit bigger so there's maybe a little bit drier ride?
Yes and no. Like
Okay.
in a perfect world, I'd have a bass boat and a deep feed ranger because
That would be great.
early, yeah, it would be awesome. I need to find a way to create like a corporate atmosphere, but not like we were talking about this earlier. I need to find a way to like get like
Mhm.
4 or 5 guides on my team, right? Be able to book like 150 days times 6, so like 700 days of summer, and just kind of
Mhm.
hand them out and then take like 10% or 20% off the top and just pay them whatever their trip rate is plus my fee for booking the trip, then
Yep.
maybe I could have 2 boats. But like
Yeah.
no. So like I'd love to have 2 boats, but I do a lot of finger lake guiding as well in some
Mhm.
inland lakes, and some of those lakes it's too tough to get a big deep V Ranger in. So,
Really?
yeah, I have to pick my poison, and really, like, the best spot that I have found from maneuverability, drivability, and comfortability is gonna be probably, like, a 19 PHX.
Mm.
And you're thinking Lake Erie, you should probably have a 21 footer. Yes, it's great for covering a lot of distance, holding a lot of gas, but
Mhm.
when it comes to a 21-foot bass boat and 4 footers to a 19-foot bass boat and 4 footers, the biggest difference I have is maneuverability. I can
Yeah.
cut easier, I can steer it better, and kind of like bob and weave and pick my lanes, as opposed to in a 21 PHX, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You're driving over the top of them and you're still getting wet. So,
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I've talked that through with a lot of guys, like a lot of guys like a 20 foot,
yeah,
or like like you're saying, down even to a 19 for the maneuverability. And to me, like I went with the 721,
which is what,
and it's
20 foot 11, I think, right?
yeah, so it's a smaller and it's narrower. It's a lot narrower than like a even a 920 or a 921.
Yeah.
And so it's about as small as you can get for a 21-foot boat. But I've seen like the difference for me is if it's just like a chop, not a Lake Erie, a Lake Ontario, not a Great Lakes roller type wave. When it's just a chop, it's nice to have that extra length because you
Yeah.
can just cut over them, right?
Yep.
But when it comes to like when you're actually cutting and weaving and diving, which I've only done a little bit of when it's been really big here or like on a Lake Ontario in the open, watching guys how they maneuver those things. I think a lot goes into play too. You can maybe get away with a 20 or a 21 footer um, if you are propped correctly and you've got a good jack plate positioning to where you have a lot of torque to be able to whip quicker. But you're right, like you need to be able to crank harder and quicker with when you have that much more nose
Yeah.
involved on your boat.
Yeah, you'd almost have to, so, like, with my 19-foot Triton, it's barely 19 foot, it's just under.
Mhm,
With my 189 TRX, I don't have to create that much torque. I can trim it out at 3/4 trim and ride in at 24 miles an hour in 3 footers, just
mhm,
dipping and diving and weaving my way in, as to
mhm.
where somebody in a 21 PHX might be going 29 miles an hour, but they're literally going over the waves.
Yeah.
So, eh, it's
You
more of a pick your poison. Either way, you're getting wet.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. When it comes down to it, bass boats aren't made for those conditions, to
nope.
be real. But
No,
you're right, and I think too, I mean, a lot of, for a while there, Ken Smith, and still is, I think, with doing some incredible bass boat reviews on YouTube, and he nailed everything on the head with it, and a big part of his review was what is the lowest speed I can run this boat at on pad? Just barely be on pad, and that is a massive and it comes down to your propping and everything, but, like, that is a massive difference maker to me to keep your nose up and do, like if you can do I mean, in the Legend, I could do and again, it was an 18.5-foot boat. I could do 17, 18 miles an hour
mhm.
and just go real slow over those big waves. And now in the Phoenix, and I'm not propped correctly, I need to go down one prop level, but, like, it's still low 20s, you know what I mean? Like, if you can find that balance of running a low 20 mile an hour, I think it is really beneficial to come over waves when it's bad, bad.
Oh, 100%. And safety is the first thing because a lot of times you're out there, like on the Great Lakes alone. You're not the only one who's out there either. The lake can turn in an instant. Like they could call for 1 foot or less. And you get a thunderstorm who rolls in. You have 100 boats trying to get off the lake at one time. You
Mm,
want to make sure your boat is running on pad slightly so you can see over the bow.
yeah.
And because if you can't see over the bow and you come over a 6-footer, there could be a little boat below that 6-footer you're going right over the top of.
Wow.
So yeah, it's crazy, especially like the way Buffalo is designed. It's essentially like an ocean port. They have a big break wall, and the
Okay.
harbor's on the inside. That's about a half mile from the break wall. So you have main lake, break wall with 3 entry spots. So all the boats have to funnel into these entry spots, and with the prevailing wind from the southwest, that those 6-foot waves bounce off of those walls and come back out into the lake.
Mhm.
So now you have like 10-footers that you have to come. It's not fun. Like I even like in a deep V Ranger, like yeah, you can go out there and fish in 5 and 6-footers, but it is not safe.
Mm-mm.
So I mean, there's only a couple guides in this area that I would trust to get in their boat when it's that big.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, just such a different atmosphere guiding like versus a tournament, right? Like if it's a tournament, you might have somebody that's gonna go
Yeah,
for it, and it's like, yeah, man, I can go. Like you hear stories of Frank Scalish in like literally 10 and 11 footers, and it's like,
yeah.
wow, not
Mark
me.
Zona. Like Mark
Yeah,
Zona, I think on Bass Live at the St. Lawrence when Chris Johnston won on that final day when there was like 6-footers. He told a story about how he fished the tournament up there and they ran to Chameau Bay. And the
Mhm.
Coast Guard was waiting for them to come off the lake because there was like 15-footers on Ontario.
That is insane, dude.
My question is, how do you catch a bass when it's like that? I mean,
I don't know the heavy weight and sitting in your seat. I mean, sitting in the
yeah,
console. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah, ew. Ooh, ooh.
Like that's just. I mean, and I experienced even on Clear Lake, man. It was as bad as I have ever seen Clear Lake for sure. I was fishing as a cone flew out into California and that. And dude, it was hyping, man. Like I don't know, it probably got to 5 to 6 footers kind of at the mouth of this bay. And we were back in there and we were on these fish and boat is spot locked in the front. And I mean, waves are and this is a big brand new 20 foot Ranger 520R, which the R is a really deep hole. It's awesome rough water boat this new Ranger is. And anyways, spot locked and the waves are crashing over the trolling motor and just flooding the boat. Like kaboom, just flooding it. Bilge pump is cranking. I'm like, if it was any bigger than this, like, and we had to leave the spot, like we can't fish this. Like it's literally pushing us backwards. Spot lock is not strong enough. And we're getting soaked.
Great.
Yeah.
Fun. Wow. So
Fun time.
this,
Got a 5 pounder doing it. But
yeah,
other than that, it was
yeah.
horrible.
Oh, it's like, oh, yeah. I'll pass on that.
Yeah.
Like safety first. I'm all about safety first, and I might take some rap for that. But like 3-footers, even in a 20-foot bass boat in the summertime, is just not a fun gig for clients to be
That's
in.
the thing with the clients. Like they're not used to holding on and breaking their back running down
Yeah.
the lake.
Yeah, and I mean, you can say that I'm like a fair weather fisherman. I am far from it. I'll go out there in terrible weather. I just don't want to put other people in that
That's fair.
situation.
That's absolutely fair and
So
smart.
that is why I got my New York State guide license. I can offer inland lakes
Mm.
that we can go catch giant largemouth in and smallmouth, depending on what lake we choose, or both.
Or you can go into the
So
river, right? As
or
far
if you can, yep, as long as the river isn't muddy, we can go into the river up to like 30-mile-an-hour winds. It's just not fun because the
yeah.
current moves at like 4.5 miles an hour.
Oh, geez.
So, but we'll catch fish.
Yeah. That's
So,
awesome, dude. Well, it's just cool because you're in such a diverse situation,
yeah,
with your ability to just maneuver and go fish largemouth versus the main attraction there.
yeah, and that's if people want to do it. The one thing I'm focusing on this year is I
Mhm.
think it might be a big ticket is learning how to fish like bigger swim baits. Because
Mm.
I know like guys out west love to do that stuff. I'm like, man, if I can figure out a big swim bait bite all year round in New York, I could see people wanting to come to New York to do that. Because my goal is just to be like a specialist, right? Like I want to be a trophy smallmouth specialist. I want to be the guy that people book to go fish artificial tournament style baits for smallmouth. I don't want to be a live bait guide. I don't want to be somebody who's just taking
Catching
the
two
big
pounders.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's plenty enough guides that will just go sit on a school of 2 pounders and they're happy because they're catching fish. I leave 2 pounders to go find 4 and 5s. We
Sounds
might,
like a Josh Douglas, man, as
yeah.
far as like he specializes in, right, like on with a guy who he specifically guides out of state clients only, people who are interested in coming and breaking their PB smallmouth record.
hmm And that's what I'm working on slowly becoming.
Mhm.
It takes a lot of seat time, and with Lake Erie, it doesn't really allow you to be out there every day. So
No, it does.
there's there's some days that we can only get out one day in a week. There's other weeks we're out for four. There's stretches where we can get out for 15 days in a row.
Wow.
But that's where it's unique this time of year, because even if it's blowing like 20, we can usually get out behind the walls in the harbor. But the downside to that is if it gets too windy, then it gets muddy, and then the smallmouth just don't eat well. But I'm starting to figure out how to catch them too. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay, in the mud, give us just a little bit. Smallmouth in the mud. What's
burn a
your
spin,
go-to?
big white spinnerbait.
Okay,
Just burn it.
something that shows up.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing yesterday on my guide trip. In the morning, it was mud, like maybe 6 inches of is, and we are burning spinner baits and just cracking 3 to 4.5 pounders all
Wow.
day for like the first 3 hours. It was silly, and then I got into a bay where the water got clear, and I ended up catching 5 giants on a mag draft. So
That's such a good
like,
fight.
I was
That's
like,
awesome.
this is fun. And then by like 1 o'clock, the water got really clear, and we were able to finesse them. I think we caught, I don't know, between three of us, we put 55 fish in the boat in 9 hours, but the first 4 hours were subpar conditions. So
Wow.
if we had clear water all day, we would have easily hit 100.
That is awesome, dude.
And I don't think we caught one under 4 pounds.
Big
So
ass.
yeah, fun.
Dude, heck yeah. That is awesome. Um, with everything that what I've noticed on the back end, not with your specific to guiding, but just like through our conversations and through everything with social media, you've become and like super active on social media, which is just awesome.
Yeah.
You've got your website going. How much of your bookings are coming from those? Like, where are your bookings coming from? Do you feel like after a year into this?
So to be honest, my website gets zero. It's
Okay.
almost honestly a waste of time, but it's good to have it because there are people who still seek it out. Like I probably get like 70 to 100 views a week on my website. And it's
Mhm.
always generated when I post reports and post about it in my social media. But I
Sure.
would say probably like truthfully 90% of my guide trips have come from Instagram or the Serious Angler Network.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What an asset. That is wild.
And then the other 10% have come from Facebook.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
All
and
social media based.
yeah, it's quite wild, but no, I should change that up. 60% social media, I mean Serious Angler, Instagram, 10% come from Facebook, and then the other 30 are probably referrals.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I do
Referrals.
have quite a bit of referrals, and I don't want to let that out. I'm ever thankful for those clients that refer people and clients to me because when that happens, those people end up booking like 3 or 4 days at a time. So I'm already extremely blessed in the fact that I have a lot of repeat clients and that really help fill the calendar
Yeah.
a
What
ton.
That's awesome. And the repeat side of things is such a cool thing in the guide business for me. I got a lot of friends that guide. Did some guiding in college, hunting wise. And like the coolest experience to me is the guys who are guiding for a really long time and career guiding, right? To where like they've got clients that have been coming back to see them for 10, 20, 30 years,
Mhm.
and you build such a relationship with those folks. So I'm excited for you or this journey to see like 5 years from now, how many of these people become really good friends and that kind of a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. And I hope they do because what I tell every client is that as soon as the conversation starts and as soon as they book the trip, I go, you're no longer a client, you're a friend. So,
That's
like, no matter what, reach out if you have a question, a boat question, a bait question, by all means. And I mean, if you want names of guys who I still talk to since the first trip, I'm sure they would say yes to be a referral source because they literally text you like, "Hey, like 11 o'clock at night. What do you think of this bait? Do you think it would work doing this? And I'm like, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. And I usually
That's
get back to them the
awesome.
next day. And they're like, this is how I would apply it. And then they're like sending me pictures of fish they caught, like on the advice I give them, and etc. And I'm like, this is awesome.
That's pretty
So
fulfilling. That's
yeah,
cool.
it's quite surreal that a bunch of people put some scrub like me in their thoughts and want to pay me to take them fishing.
Oh, come on.
So yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
it's a lot of fun. And then when I get local guys out, like I try not to take too many local guys, so I'm very picky about who I take out locally.
Sure.
They're incredible, and like some of them fish tournaments against me, and they're like, "Don't worry, like we know your spots. We're just trying to figure out how you fish that." And I'm like, "It's fine." I'm like, I don't fish that many Erie tournaments anymore, anyways, so I don't
Yeah.
really care because I'm more worried about guiding and putting people on trophy smallmouth than I am catching them during a tournament. I'll go largemouth fishing if I want to fish a tournament. So
Yeah. I gotcha.
yeah.
And as far as like pre-fishing for a guide trip, I mean, it's Erie, so that you can't get out there all the time. But how often are you doing that? Are you using like, okay, maybe you're on a guide trip on a Tuesday and you're catching them pretty good, and you're like, hey, let's go run some other stuff. And then are you like sneaking in at all, like maybe a little bit of practice to see if an area is good for the next day? I mean,
Yeah.
like, what
Oh
is
yeah,
that?
like almost every time I'm on a guide trip, like it's kind of crazy. I've accumulated like 2,300 waypoints in the last year on Erie besides of what I've had. So I
Oh,
think I'm up to
wow.
almost like 3,000. I'll be like, hey, like we've already caught like 15 really good ones. Do you want to go find a giant? And I'm going to show you how I look for big fish on like my graphs.
Oh,
So I'll like take the time to run to an area that I've never graphed and be like, it's the same depth. This is a little structure, or it'll be like in the middle of nowhere and be like, we're going to idle around for like a half hour and see if we find anything.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like last year, I went super shallow in an area that I've never fished. And I ended
Okay.
up finding a gold mine of like 5.5 pounders, and they sat there for me for 2.5 months. So
Wow.
every guide trip I could pull up there and catch a big one. I was like, this is
Wow.
incredible. like, and it
That's awesome.
and it was like 200 yards from a really good rock pile I had, just an area I never got over to or grabbed.
So close.
And I
Wow.
was like, let's go look. And it's like a 300-yard area of just boulders, and it's loaded. So I
That
can't
is
wait to get back
awesome.
there in July because they'll be there from July till October.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah, in July, October, we're fishing like 40 to 35 to 53, 54 foot of water, and
That is so deep.
this
Wow.
spot's in 19. Like that's how like surreal it is. My rock pile that I have in the area is in 35 foot. And I just like climbed up the hill and I'm like, oh.
Here's where they're going to rest or go and set up here because they're,
well,
I mean, 200 feet, like to me, like that's the same, probably the same population of fish that you're catching. Some of them that are back on this other spot.
and it's funny, like I've tried pulling up there in the morning and I can't catch them. It's an
Oh,
afternoon
man.
deal. It has to be slick, calm, and sunny.
Interesting. They're just going to
Yeah.
have to sit next to those rocks.
Yep. They're going up there to eat something. And every one of them is fat, like just
Wow.
ginormous.
Dude, that's awesome.
like
Gosh, that sounds
th-
like fun.
this spot is awesome.
Yeah, man. Oh my goodness. Well, one other thing I wanted to talk about with your guide service. Um, so of the year, what's your goal on how many days of the year? I mean, obviously weather permitting, and you probably also have a process of like, okay, hey, this person's coming in from out of town. Dude, the forecast a week out's not looking good. It's really not good now, but like, and we can talk the cancellation or what that kind of looks like from a wind and standpoint. But anyways, what's your goal for the year? I mean, you're living up north. There's only a certain amount of days where you can actually fish. What does that kind of look like for you in a season?
Yes, so that's a great question. So, on average in New York State, you have, if I'm adding in steelhead, we really have like 300 days of good fishing weather for bass and steelhead combined.
That's pretty good. That's more than I
Yeah.
had expected.
If we're talking straight bass fishing,
Yeah.
it will range from, let's see here, doing quick math. about 250 days, 200 250 days we can target bass in New York. So
Gotcha.
like we're talking the end of March, beginning of April through December,
Mm.
depending on how cold it gets, when it gets cold, how much snow do we have? Is it the lake's muddy? Did they start to freeze, or did they thaw early, or is it a late spring? Like there's a lot of variables in it, but on average, there's that amount of days we can fish because I have all of my licensing in New York. So I could literally be on any body of water that somebody wants to go to.
Mm.
And when it comes to cancellations, if somebody's traveling in from out of town, I might be like, you have a 3-day trip. We might be able to get 1 day in on Erie. If you're up to it, we could go hit a couple inland lakes because this the price we agreed on. I'm not going to upcharge you. Normally, I charge $50 more
'Cause
for
you're
my
having to
Finger
drive
Lake
there.
trips. Yeah, but I'm like, because of the inconvenience, we can do that, or we can reschedule. But I
Okay.
got my New York State license because I don't want to reschedule if I don't have to.
That
But
makes a
it's
lot of sense. Yeah.
but it's
Your
completely
backup
up to the client. Yeah. So like if a client only wants to catch smallmouth, now
plan.
like we might want to reschedule. But if they're open to go catch some largemouth, 100%. I'm like, let's go jack on some fish with the jig in 9 foot of water. Like, let's
Yeah.
go have some fun. If
Yeah.
they know how to fish a jig on a bait caster.
Yeah. That's a question. I mean, how many people that you book, percentage, rough percentage, can throw a casting rod versus just a spinning rod?
That is a great question. I would be if I was saying less than 10% can't use a casting rod, I'd probably be lying because I think it's closer to 5%.
Wow.
And the trick is I have dialed in my MGL reels so well that I can teach
Mhm.
somebody how to cast it in like 30 seconds.
I have found that to be true for myself too. I used to be, I guess, snobby in like high school
Yeah.
and being like, and even into college, of being like, oh no, like be careful, you're gonna backlash this. Like, I don't really want you to like just put brand new line on that. Like, here, we'll maybe
Yeah.
go this route. But now, like, I just turn the brakes up, turn the spool tension up a little bit, and then just slowly back it off as they get kind of the rhythm down and how it all works. But I agree. I think it's come a long way, and I think that
Yeah.
loan your equipment has made that better to teaching people.
Yeah. So funny story. Not so much funny story, but a quick story. I had a guide client this
Mhm.
April, one of my first trips of the year, and we went largemouth fishing. And I fish on a lot of my guide trips, but I don't try to catch fish. I'm just trying to see like what else they might bite or if there is something that we're missing because I'm going to put the high percentage baits in my clients' hands. So I had the one client who fished a lot up in New Hampshire. He's throwing a rattle trap and he's smoking them on a bait caster. But the other
Awesome.
guy is a steelhead client of mine. He's never used a bait caster before, but he had some. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, let's get a couple fish and then we'll figure it out. So he catches a couple on a single swim bait. And I'm like, I've caught two on a jig. I give him the jig. I'm like, you're just going to slowly underhand cast it till you can feel it like pendulum. So I literally just had him sitting there, pendulum,
Awesome.
like getting the bait moving. And I'm like, as soon as you feel comfortable, just let it go. Like real softly. Don't care about how hard it hits the water because it's not going to backlash based on how I had the reel set up. And as he's doing it, I just slowly kept backing him off. And on his third cast, his third flip, he caught almost a 4 pound largemouth on a jig.
Wow.
And I was like, that's incredible. Like, he's like, that was
Awesome.
sweet. And I was like, yeah, like it's simple. And then after that, I had him throwing a chatterbait. He was throwing a crankbait, and he didn't set a bait caster down the rest of the day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
So it took me 3 flips and about 30 seconds of instruction. And the kid was winging just about everything around the yard and catching them on it. So it was really cool. It's gratifying.
Heck yeah. No, that's the coolest part. I've got a couple other just random after
Yeah.
100 days of guiding. Uh, have you have you felt yourself at all when it's been like, I don't know. I guess it's what's nice about it is you have a couple days break just because of the weather possibly. But have you felt yourself like after what's the longest streak you've guided days in a row? And have you felt yourself like any little bit of burnout, or has it all been like pretty good?
So this spring, what did I do? I think I did like 8 days in like 11 or something like that. So it was pretty busy.
Oh yeah.
And I was ready to get to Florida. So we went to Florida for 3 days and
Yeah.
instantly got back and got right back into guiding. But no, like the biggest thing is you just kind of get your hands get tired and they hurt. Like I was
Cut
bleeding out
up.
of both of my thumbs, my fingers, because they're just torn apart from grabbing like 80 to 90 smallmouth a day. So like, and they're all big, so they're mean, they have teeth. So it's like
Mhm.
my hands were ready for a break.
I don't doubt that. Dude, you need to be wearing the blackfish gloves. And I know you still get your fingers tips, but I've turned into a glove guy just because honestly, more than anything for how
Yeah.
much time I spend fishing and outside, I keep getting my girlfriend Kenzie is always like calling me old man hands because and
Yeah.
I've tried and I've gotten so much better about skincare and sunscreen and all that because dude, they're just getting wrinkly as all get out. So I've been
Yeah.
wearing gloves more and more. I've gotten a lot more used to them. And the blackfish ones are great because they're lightweight and then they also kind of breathe really well.
I think the way I hold a reel, a
Yep,
glove just gets in the way for me. I like lose
gotcha.
sensitivity, so I can't wear a glove for just the way I hold a reel. Like when I was throwing Daiwas, I had a glove kind of like falling apart in the finger, and it got
Uh-huh.
caught in the T wing as I was reeling.
No way.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, like what do I do?
Wait, with the fish on?
Yeah, I was
No.
like, what do I do? Like, yeah, just a mess. Like, I had to like rip it out and like reel, and I sit there messing, get the piece of yarn out of the T wing. I just don't wear them, but like where I have like cuts, right? Like you can kind of see this one here.
Yep.
It's like the glove would sit like there. So
Yeah,
it's,
it'd be a little bit low.
and then this one is in, that one's a little harder to see because the
Dude,
angle,
I
but
get
it's
that
right
even just
there.
same deal. If I have like back-to-back tournaments or something, like, gosh, my hands get so beat, especially in a place when you're catching a lot of fish
Yeah.
and normally smallmouth that's that way. This Lake of Wahi, dude, and I remember all the elites saying it too. This is coming up for me, the Bass Nation tournament. The elites are also going back there. And to this day, even after spending time up in your country and catching giants up there and then catching smallmouth all across the country, I have yet to find a place as Lake Oahe that has as mean a fish as I have. I don't know what the strain is, what is in the water there, but like even a 2 pounder will rip your freaking hand off. I've never had fish that you put your fish in you go to put your hands in the live well, and these smallmouth dude were eating like you would go in there and I'd be grabbing for a completely different fish, and I'd have a fish come over and smoke my thumb, and I'd be
What
like,
is, what is the main bait fish in Hawaii? Is it like an alawai for a gizzard shad or?
no, it's a dude, they've got some weird stuff. I don't think they're alewives. They have this really big bait fish. I'm trying to think of what it is now. It might be alewives, but I don't think so. Now I gotta look.
Because I have found on lakes that have pelagic smallmouth that chase
That's what they
alois
do.
or a or some type of bait fish, they tend to be the meanest suckers in the freaking world. Like a couple of our finger lakes, they get really pelagic in the summer and chase alois around, and then one will smoke a spook in like 3 foot of water for absolutely no reason, and they will literally like bite your thumb off, like
Yeah,
sit there and chow on it and shake and tear you just to shreds. They're
yeah.
so mean.
Dang. So they have smelt in there, which is the same like a very pelagic fish.
Yep.
Smelt are a bait fish that just move around a lot. But there's I know there's something else that's really big in there that moves around a lot too. But they are just, I mean, as mean as it gets, man. It's just wild to me. It's so much fun, but like, good gosh, do you get your hands tore up?
I love smallmouth. And it's funny, like all my clients will ask me, not all of them, but I sound like a certain Instagram page that all of us follow. But sorry. I didn't mean to go on that rant. But like a lot of my clients ask me, like, do you really like fishing for smallmouth? And I dead straight look them in the eye and I'm like, no, I'm sick of it. Like it's all I do. I live 7 minutes from like the world's greatest smallmouth fishery. I'm like,
Yeah.
give me a flipping stick, 20-pound fluoro, and let me go flip some
Let me go
sparse grass and
swing
rip
on
some
them.
faces off. Yeah, like
Yeah, yeah.
I get really tired of like the wimpy rods, and it's
I don't
just
doubt it.
it's so much fun, but it's like, oh great, it's another 4-pounder because we're just so spoiled with 4-pounders.
Dude, you are so spoiled. And that is hilarious to hear you say, but I understand. I think I'm someone who just naturally gets bored, man. I get
Yeah,
bored with things. I want to go do something else. And I totally have ADHD. And like the biggest thing for me, what I love about bass fishing is that it is, and particularly tournament fishing, and I guess it doesn't matter. It could be any bass fishing, especially if you travel, is the fact that you can catch them so many different ways with so many different things you can have. And I love fisheries when there is a tournament going on where you have guys in 30 feet of water and you have guys in a foot and a half of water.
yeah.
And I just
Every Great
love
Lake
that.
event ever.
Yeah, like literally. And that's just the coolest thing to me about bass fishing is there's always a different way to catch them and you can make it your own way. And you can go 20 miles away to a different lake and it's completely different.
Yeah. It's absolutely it's an incredible sport. It's ever changing, it's ever evolving, and I think a lot of that has to do with anglers are starting to realize that we don't have to throw 4-inch baits to catch bass. They're an extreme predator and they will come up and smoke a 10-inch swim bait
Oh,
when
yeah.
they're 12 inches long just because they're
Wow.
curious and they want to kill it. So like it's what happens on a body of water when everything aligns is just insane.
It's so cool. Makes me
Especially here in New York because we have so many giant. Like every one of our lakes has trophy caliber fish in them for the Northeast.
Gee, that's awesome. That is wild. It is true though. I
Yeah,
mean, oh, you're in such an abundance.
and you
Um,
got a glimpse of it. Like if you come back this summer, you got to spend like a week out here.
I really do. We need to just take some time and film a bunch of content, and also just I want to see some of those Finger Lakes and everything else that's going on up there.
When are you coming up here?
So I'll be at Champlain. Gonna fly in and fish as a co. I think that's the first week of August.
Oh man, that's a fun time of year.
Is it?
Yeah, my anniversary with mine and Amanda's anniversary is August 4th. So I think it's that weekend. But
Perfect.
like August is wide open for me right now. I have besides that, I have like no guide trips in August. And I don't know why. Low key, like people who are listening to this, if you want to come fish deep water smallmouth and have an absolute right, we're only gonna get 5 to 15 bites a day, but August is the time to do it because we're fishing 40 foot of water with a drop shot with 5-pound leader, 6-pound leader. And
It's big ones.
if you catch one, they're going to be big.
Wow.
Usually, like me and Bailey went out last August, like right at the beginning of August, and I hadn't been out in like 2 or 3 weeks. I had a lot of tournaments, no guide trips because I was fishing a lot of tournaments in July. It was my first time on Erie in like a month and some change, and we went out there, and I think we caught like 26 pounds
Wow.
in August when you're not supposed to catch 26 pounds.
That's wild.
Yeah, he caught a 5.88, and I think I had like a 5.5, and then we had another one right at 5, and then 2 high fours.
Jeez. Dang, dude.
Fun.
Man,
Yeah.
that is fun. So when time frame wise, I mean, when are you most booked out? And then when are you like, man, I need to figure out a way to get more clients during this time of the year?
So June, I think I have like 5 days available in June, and honestly, I don't care if I book them because June,
You're locked and loaded.
yeah, like I think I have 22 days booked out of 31 possible days in June. So
Wow.
June's gonna be a busy month. July, I have like 3 or 4 trips, so I'm fishing a couple bigger tournaments in July. So
Mm.
all of my time and dedication is gonna go to that. I don't care if I guide it all in July. If I do like a day here, I think I have like 3 days in July right now, which is fine.
Yeah.
Um, August, I would like to get some more trips because August can be a ton of fun. Um, August, September, and early October is when I really would like to start feeling like if I can get 30 days booked between those 3 months, I'll
Okay.
be an extremely happy camper because that would put me to almost 100 trips on the year, including my steelhead stuff. So that'll give me some flexibility with steelhead to where I won't have to guide as much through the winter.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Sounds like you got a pretty good handle on numbers and what you need to do,
Yeah,
to make.
I've roughly figured without tips, and I give multi-day discounts. So if I have like 100 days on an average of like $375, I'll basically made what I made at the bank.
Mhm.
So, which is perfectly fine with everything
Yeah.
else I have going on. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate you sharing the numbers with us and how
Yeah,
that all works. Um,
absolutely.
out of 2 last questions for you on the 100 days in now. Number 1, what have you learned about yourself guiding, just after spending 100 days of doing this and creating your own business and going out on your own? And then what have you learned about other people in the 100-day window? Maybe it's clients, maybe whatever it may be.
Um, so what have I learned about myself? When I was in the corporate world, I always thought I wasn't a people person. Now that
Okay.
I'm guiding, I absolutely love talking to every client who comes on my boat.
You're
Like,
a people person, man. There's no
yeah,
doubt.
it's
Need
really
a
funny.
little someone to open you up, and it's pretty hard to not be opened up when it's you and a couple people on a boat.
Yeah, yeah, and we're having fun. Like the other day, a couple of my clients on the boat. The first thing my client says when he steps on my boat was "Fireball," like the song "Fireball," and like
Yeah,
it was stuck in all of our heads all day long. So every time we'd catch a fish, we'd start singing "Fireball," and like it's just like the way it goes. Like you're gonna get endless entertainment when you're on the boat with me because I don't like dull. Even if the fishing's tough, and I might be miserable because the fishing's tough, and I just like naturally feel terrible, even though I can't
yeah.
control how the fish bite. Um,
We got a dog
it's
bark.
still gonna have fun because we're gonna laugh, joke. I'm not gonna be like, I can't believe you lost that fish. I might razz on you, like, come on, man. But you'll get another bite, don't worry. Like I've been out on the water. I'm not gonna name drop anything, but I've heard like other guides like screaming at their clients because they're not listening to the guide when he tells them to like lift the rod up. And I'm like, that's just how do you have repeat business?
That's wild.
And then we have clients that just take people out fishing because they want to make an extra dollar and their clients don't catch anything all day. Like I had a buddy go out with a local guide here and he's like, I didn't catch a bass all day. How'd you guys do? And I'm like, dude, we caught like 60. I was like, next time just book me, man. Like,
Yeah,
like we're gonna catch fish.
that's exactly right.
Yeah, and whatever. Like everybody has their own poison they can pick. I'm not gonna say names, I'm not gonna bash anybody, but you know who's on the water every day, and then you know who isn't, and there's reasons.
Yeah,
So
that's a good mindset to have.
yeah,
Dang, I like it.
yeah.
Well, dude, we will get to wrapping things up here. I'm not sure if any of your PB stuff has changed, but I would love to hear just to reiterate, biggest largemouth, biggest spotted bass, if you've caught a spot, and biggest smallmouth. And then we can also get into how folks can get a hold of you to book a trophy smallmouth trip or a Finger Lakes trip.
So client big ones that have been on my boat or my personal big ones?
I was thinking more. That's normally in the show. I have people do their personal
Okay.
big ones,
Yeah.
but
So
it has a client beat your
no.
PB. Okay, I was gonna
Uh,
say. I
so
hope not because you probably spend a lot more time doing this.
my personal smallmouth is 615. I think it actually on the scale on the other side was 689 or 688.
Yeah.
Absolute like beast. It was in May, like 7 years ago. I have caught one over 7, but I don't count it because it was on a worm harness trolling for walleye.
Really? On
Yeah,
Erie?
on Erie. Yeah.
Wow.
Over I remember clearly it was over 90 foot of water, 45 foot down.
That is just the worst, and I
Yeah.
hate that. But I love it, but I hate like, it's just like,
So it
oh,
doesn't count. But I
yeah, but
was
it's like, how are you ever gonna go target that fish? You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, that fish was probably just out suspended chasing stuff, and I guess
It
now forward facing sonar, but just it's insane to me.
Craziest part is my dad caught one like 5 ounces bigger 10 minutes later in the same
Oh
spot.
my gosh.
Yeah. Well, I was like 16. Absolutely insane. I don't have photos of it anymore. They were on a Polaroid camera, just
Oh
gone.
man. Just
Uh,
megas though.
yeah. My biggest largemouth ever, I went back and looked at all of my records. I thought I had one that was closer to 7, but it turns out last October with Bailey, I caught one. I think it was like 648 or 658 on a
Heck yeah.
chatterbait, and that's my biggest largemouth.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. Man, you guys have such thick fish up there.
But big fish in the boat this year. I
Mhm.
caught a 6'6" accidentally on a guide trip. Felt really bad about that.
Oh
Um
gosh.
Yeah, and
Like,
the
hey,
biggest
sorry.
yeah. Oh, like, it was actually funny, like, we are hammering them. Like, my clients are absolutely just blasting their doors off, and I'm like, to see if they'll eat a different color, I was like, "I'm gonna throw the same thing as you, but a completely off the wall color." And I'm just like, "Da, da, da, I'm not getting bit, not getting bit." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." I'm like, "Maybe I'll change it." And as soon as I say that, I feel dink. I'm like, "Oh," and I still lean into them, and I'm like, I looked at my clients and I'm like, I am so sorry. And he goes, What do you mean? He's like, Are you hooked? I'm like, This is an absolute giant. I can't move them. Like the rod is double. It was the Alpha Angler spy bait hair jig rod. So it's
Uh-huh.
pretty soft, like through the middle of the rod, but it has an extra fast tip. And I'm like torqued on this fish with 6 pound test on a Ned rig. And you just see, whoa, whoa. I'm like, This is like a 6+. Like
Oh
he's like,
my.
No way, and he nets the fish and his jaw dropped. He's like, That's almost 7. I'm like, Nah, it's like 6. I threw it on a scale 6. I think it was like 659 or 658.
Jeez.
And I was like,
Just
I am
thinking.
so sorry. Absolute giant. But I got client 6 pounders. We got 5 in the boat. The biggest one is 626. And then we have 40 over 5 in the boat this
Wow.
year, and biggest largemouth because I've only done 2 largemouth trips. Well, we've only caught largemouth twice. Once was an actual largemouth trip, and the other one was we just went in because the smallmouth bite was absolute trash, and I have a largemouth spot.
Yeah.
And my client caught a 4.56, I believe.
Nice.
So flipping a jig.
That's
So that
fun.
was fun. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Dude, that's awesome. And you do something really cool too, where you have a is it a gift card or something related
Yep.
to if someone catches the biggest fish of the season?
Yeah, so whatever client catches the biggest smallmouth will get 100. Who catches the biggest largemouth will also get 100. But I do have a little hidden caveat. If a client catches both the biggest largemouth and smallmouth, then it's 250. So it's an extra
Wow.
$50 bonus. I really like the reason why I got into guiding was to give back, right? Like I'm not doing it for myself. I'm not doing it to be rich.
Mhm.
Um, as humans, we should all be trying to leave an imprint on this world and to leave
Positive way.
impressions that resonate with people. And at my point in life, I'm like, what have I done to this point to help like humanity at all? And if
Mhm.
I can give back any bit of knowledge I can, that's why I became a guide. And then because so many of my clients are repeat clients, I'm like, how can I not reward them for keep coming back to me? So I set up the whole gift card idea. And last year, it was a young lady who um, basically was like a childhood friend's sister of the family who caught it. That I
Okay.
hadn't talked to in like 10 years. She came out with like an ex coworker of mine. And she
Nice.
caught a 6. I think that fish was 606. So like just over 6 pounds, but it was just ironic that she caught it, which
That's
was really
awesome.
cool. So they got $100 gift card to Cabela's. But since we are teamed up with Omnia is not paying for the gift cards. I'm going to purchase them from Omnia, but they'll also piggyback with our code. So you get discounts and free money to a tackle shop. So I'm paying
That's
for those.
awesome.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, and Omni is great. I'm
Yeah.
so impressed, man. They such fast shipping and they have everything. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, Andy, thanks for coming on and giving us an update with the guide business. I'd love to kind of almost do this annually, dude, and just see where things go and grow for
Yeah.
you. Um,
Absolutely. Let's do it. We'll set
yeah,
up 1 year from today and record again.
perfect. Sounds good, man.
Awesome.
Well, how can folks get set up on a guide trip, follow along with you with everything you've got going, give us the details now. I'm sure if you're an avid serious angler and Business from the Bass Boat listener, you've got all this. But for someone who maybe is just tuning into this,
Full Fishing Guide Service is the Instagram handle, whatever you call it. That's where I am on probably 99% of the time. I respond to all messages. I go through all 3 boxes every day, 3-4 times a day, because I hate missing out on stuff. I see it as if you send me a message and I don't respond for 2 hours, you probably already contacted another guide. So I try to be on it and answer very promptly. Do not email me. I find when I email back, only one client has ever responded and actually booked a trip with me. Either call me. I mean, I'll throw my phone number right out there, 716-535-0908, Buffalo, New York. The website was it fullfishingguide.com, I believe is my website. I don't go to it very often, but I'm sure it will be linked in the description. And yeah, that's the easiest way is Instagram, Facebook. So
awesome, man. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, folks, if you want to absolutely go to a magical place on this world-class fishery, and you got Andy to screw around with in the boat the whole time, go ahead and book it up, because that is it's cool to see someone chasing their dream, man, and you're absolutely doing it.
Yeah, I appreciate literally like all the support and everybody who's booked trips. It's been surreal up to this point. Like, I never thought it would be possible to be a self-sustaining guide after like 6 months of doing it. And I already have enough trips on this year to basically like double what I did last year. So it's incredible. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Awesome. Well, glad to hear it, man, and can't wait to check in more
Yeah.
for the listeners of the show. And of course, we're always chatting about it, but
Yeah.
that's what we're
Absolutely.
doing, bringing value to folks through some of this stuff to hopefully not make some of the same mistakes that we make. So
Yeah. Absolutely. That is the goal. So learn from our mistakes. We'll be better for it.
that's
So
exactly right. All right, man. We'll take it easy, and we'll chat with you here soon.
sounds good, bud.
All right.